Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
First, Caitlin, something I just heard from a senior Israeli official who says that according to Israeli assessments, there are very high chances that the entire Iranian general staff, including the head of the Iranian general staff of the Iranian military, and several senior Iranian nuclear scientists were all eliminated in the Israeli strikes tonight. I hear that again from a senior Israeli official who says that several senior top Iranian military commanders, including the head of the general staff of the Iranian military and senior nuclear scientists, have all been targeted in those strikes. And according to IDF assessments, there's a high chance that they've been eliminated.
I mean, that is really striking intelligence, if that is accurate.
We don't at this point, Gadi. No U.S. involvement, according to 2 U.S. officials. But the Israeli military has begun airstrikes against Iran, according to those 2 U.S. officials. Now, Gadi, this is hugely significant, and it represents a major break, it seems, with the Trump administration. President Trump earlier today had been asked about the possibility of all this, and he said that it could very well happen. But the president also coming back and saying that he hoped it wouldn't because he thinks it would blow it. In other words, referring to the nuclear talks with Iran, which the administration has said it has made some progress on. Now,
for years, the Iranian regime has called for the destruction of the State of Israel, planning and advancing concrete military plans to do so. Over the past few months, intelligence has shown that Iran is closer than ever to obtaining a nuclear weapon. This morning, the IDF began preemptive and precise strikes targeting the Iranian nuclear program in order to prevent the Iranian regime's ability to build a nuclear bomb in the immediate time frame. We have no choice. We are operating against an imminent and existential threat. We cannot allow the Iranian regime to obtain a nuclear weapon that would be a danger to Israel and the entire world. This operation is for our right to exist here, for our future and for our children's future. The State of Israel has the right and the obligation to operate in order to protect its people and will continue to do so. The IDF conducted significant preparations for this operation. We are well prepared both in defense and offense to defend ourselves. The IDF will continue to defend the State of Israel.
Especially the last several weeks, though, President Trump has tried to reach out to Iran more so than Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would. There seems to be a break, and that's a rare break between Netanyahu and Trump. And this is all, again, hugely significant. If this does indeed turn out to be the case, we don't yet know the scope of all of this, but we know over the last several days, the Trump administration has pulled Americans out of the region because of this concern. So this is not unexpected, but it does really escalate things in that region and raises the possibility of an all-out war. Now, President Trump has repeatedly said that he has that there are no wars started under his presidency. This, of course, comes when he tried to reach out to Iran to try and come to some sort of an agreement on a nuclear deal, to come to some sort of arrangement on a nuclear deal over the objections of Israel. So now you have this potential conflict in Iran. Then you have the war in Gaza, of course. And so it raises a lot of questions questions about how the administration will respond to this. Now, we are reaching out to the White House and trying to get some sense for what might happen next year. No comment yet from the White House, but I can tell you, Gadi, when situations like this break out, certainly the president monitoring this very closely. We don't yet know, perhaps, that if he might be meeting with some of his cabinet officials at some point, the Secretary of Defense, his National Security Council. That is typically what happens in these types of situations, potentially monitoring all of this from the Situation Room. But again, the significance of this cannot be overstated. A potential conflict between Israel and Iran would have vast implications, really, for the entire world, especially at a time where we're also monitoring the conflict, the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, and also the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza.
Well, the Israelis had a siren across the country indicating that Israel's Air Force is conducting a preemptive strike against Iran's military facilities and perhaps also the nuclear facilities. I want to remind you that Iran's about a week away from being able to obtain the amount of enriched uranium for 10 bombs. So this is not me saying this. This is the international nuclear community. And the goal ultimately will be to remove the nuclear threat from the Middle East and hitting the head of the octopus of terror that's been causing all of the mess we've seen over the past couple of years in the region.
But he also stressed again that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and made clear that he would prefer a diplomatic resolution to this. The president also said that last month he had warned Netanyahu not to launch such a strike. The president is concerned that this attack could actually derail ongoing U.S. and Iran negotiations. The president has been signaling for many weeks now that he believes the U.S. and Iran are close to a deal. But then just in recent days, the president has become less confident. But his envoy, Steve Witkoff, Lindsay, he is planning to travel to Oman for scheduled talks with his Iranian counterparts on Sunday. This is after multiple rounds of talks between the U.S. and Iran. The president today, as of just hours ago, still optimistic that an agreement could be reached. We'll see how this changes things.
Selena Wang from the White House, thank you. I want to go now to Marcus Moore in Tel Aviv, who's in a shelter there. Again, we just talked about these escalations and what it could potentially mean for these peace talks, which we were expecting to happen just days from now. Marcus, what are you learning?
Well, Lindsay, I can tell you that the tension has already, as you know, been high across the region. And just moments ago, the air raid sirens went off here in Tel Aviv, and there was an announcement on the loudspeaker here in the hotel where we're staying and working, and it urged everyone, the guests, to get to the shelter on their floor. And so that's where we are right now. Just to show you around just a little bit, you can see they have some supplies in here. There are cots, and guests have also joined in these shelters to try to get to a safe place, because Lindsay, the concern has been all along over any potential Israeli strike on Iran that there would be a response. And so following what the Israelis have called a preemptive strike tonight here in the Middle East, in Iran, they soon after that sounded the alarms for anyone really across all of Israel to get to their bomb shelters, anticipating that there would be a response from Iran, and a response, Lindsay, that would be quite swift. And what we have heard from the Iranians is that if any of their locations were hit, whether they're nuclear or not, that they would respond in kind. And so that is why there's been so much concern here tonight.
And we are taking a live look at Jerusalem at this moment. Marcus Moore, thank you. I want to bring in former State Department official and ABC News contributor Colonel Steve Ganyard. He joins us now. Steve, obviously, it cannot be overstated here just how widespread these implications are.
Indeed, Lindsay. And we want to find out what actually went on here. Apparently, President Trump told Benjamin Netanyahu just recently that the U.S. would not participate. So this seems to be an all-Israeli operation. Now, the Israelis do not have bombers, so they aren't able to drop the kind of ordnance that would penetrate deep into the buried sites that the Iranians hold their centrifuges. So the question here is, what did the Israelis hit? We are seeing some reports in Tehran that some air defense sites and military sites within Tehran have been hit, but that's not really the nuclear program. And that was the intent of the strikes tonight. The other thing we need to think about here, Lindsay, is that the Iranians have thousands of missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles that can reach Tel Aviv, reach Israel. And so obviously Israel's on alert and expecting some sort of a retaliation from the Iranians quite soon.
And Steve, just want to stay with you here because we are just hearing from a U.S. official that the United States did not have any involvement. They were not in no way assisting with Israel in this attack. You have to imagine that this was the last thing the United States wanted, certainly not in anyone's best interest.
President Trump has been holding out hope that the negotiations that are going on in Oman were supposed to go on Sunday would actually lead to something, but has also been very frustrated. The Israelis see the ability of the Iranians to create a nuclear weapon as an existential threat. And so their ability to tolerate the kind of delays that we've seen out of the Iranians is very different from the U.S. So Benjamin Netanyahu made the decision to do what the Israelis have literally been planning for decades to do, and that is go after those nuclear sites to try to set back the Iranian nuclear program.
Three new pieces of information have just come in here to our bureau. The first one is perhaps the most important. According to an Israeli source familiar with Israel's planning, quote, this is not a one-day attack. And Israel is planning for multiple waves of attack. So what we're seeing now, and there are some reports of explosions coming out of Iran, this perhaps just the beginning, according to an Israeli source who says this is not simply a one-and-done operation, and there will be more attacks in the hours, potentially it seems the days ahead. Again, that Israeli source saying, quote, this is not a one-day attack. In terms of the timing of it here, the Israeli government saw a window of opportunity to carry out this attack, both militarily and diplomatically. But you just heard from Kristen Holmes that the U.S. is making it very clear Israel was acting unilaterally and on its own, believing, at least from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that this is something that Israel felt that it had to do. And you heard the defense minister calling this, quote, a preemptive strike. Two other pieces of information. First, Israel's Transportation Authority has announced that Israel's airspace is closed, at least for the time being. It's unclear how long this closure will last. We have seen flight trackers. There are no aircraft in the air right now over the skies of Israel, so this confirms what we had suspected. Israel's airspace will be closed. The only indication they give is that there will be a 6-hour heads up before the airspace reopens. And then finally, just a short time ago, the last time I was talking to you, we heard an alert on our phones. That's Israel's Home Front Command putting out an emergency alert, and it essentially says, stay close to protected shelters. Stay close to shelters or somewhere to go for safety if there is incoming from Iran, whether that's ballistic missiles or drones or other options. But Israel clearly taking this very seriously. In fact, our producer in Tel Aviv said people are going to the mini markets there and stocking up. So the country itself is bracing for whatever lies ahead here.